Hi, you're listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction. We're your hosts, Amber and Dan.
Find any trigger warnings in our episode notes. We're happy you're joining us and enjoy the show. Hey guys, we've missed you too much to wait for the beginning of season 2, so here's our summer session update. We said we'd do 1 or 2, and here's 1.
Yep, here we are.
Keeping our word. But yeah, we just want to talk about some of the things we've been doing, some of the books we've been reading, discuss a little bit about our planning for season 2, which is going to be starting in early September, and looking back on our first season, how it went, because it was our first season of our first podcast, so we got some thoughts on that.
I agree with Dan. We miss you guys. I miss talking into the void and then eventually seeing how you guys listen to it and seemingly enjoy it. Funny enough, I feel like I've been reading less because I've been doing more housekeeping stuff with work and with this podcast. So trying to get ahead so that in the autumn, I'm actually reading books and being able to get my work done, not in panic mode.
Yeah, I guess we're having a good time though, because this does take a lot of time. Of course, a lot of it's reading, which we enjoy doing. But like Amber said, I've been kind of like, I miss this. So that means we're doing something right if we're enjoying it, because that's the first thing that we need to do, right?
That's the most important part.
All right, let's talk about season 1. What we think about the books, about doing a podcast, how we think things went. Do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah, I think it went really well. It's interesting to look back and see how we started in January and had 13 episodes. I'm surprised we stuck with our every 2 weeks. We did really well with that.
I think we can say now, too, that there were at least 3 episodes we recorded on a Sunday and then you edited in time for it to be posted on Tuesday.
Yeah, did we? I think we finished one book on a Sunday. Recorded Monday morning. I edited it Monday afternoon. You listened to it Monday evening, and then we posted.
Yes, that's true. That happened at least twice. I think 2 weeks in a row toward the end when we were kind of scrambling.
Hence why I want to get ahead.
Yeah, we've been reading, starting to dig into the books for season 2, so we can hopefully record at least a couple episodes before season 2 begins.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. Going back to season 1, what was your favorite book now that we have a little time, have been able to sit with everything? Because I know at one point you said that pretty much every book that you have just read is your favorite book. So now that we're out of the thick of it and haven't read one in a little while, what would you say is your favorite?
Well, it's kind of like choosing between your children, and when you have 13 children, it's actually pretty easy to choose some favorites.
Oh, geez.
Because there's going to be some duds.
Hey, no, you can't win them all.
I thought about this in 2 ways. I have a couple favorite episodes that we recorded, like in the making of it, that I had the most fun with. That was The Shining, partly because I just haven't read Stephen King in a long time, and The Shining is a classic, and I read it who knows how many decades ago. So it was fun to go back to that. And then watching the Kubrick movie and the TV series was just really fun. Not my favorite book of the season, but talking about it was really cool. And then also another personal bias, Punk Rock Ghost Story. I'm a punk rocker. So of course I loved that book. And I got to talk a little bit about my origins as a punk rocker. So that was fun.
Everybody loves a good origin story.
It's true. And we got yours with We Sold Our Souls. Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, that one time I sold my soul. That was fun.
Favorite books? I would say the first and the last, and then a couple in between. So I really liked Revenge. That was our first episode we did, short stories like interconnected. That was just really cool. I was really happy to start off with that. And then also the last book we read, Tender as the Flesh, which was just was really good. Definitely affected me. And was just had a lot of it was cool because it had, the literary pretentiousness that I really like, but it was also just gory and disturbing, which are the things you really like.
Perfect balance.
And between those, I also threw in Song for the Unraveling of the World by Brian Evanson. Really liked that. I definitely enjoy the short stories. And then if I can add on one more, A Short Stay in Hell. I really liked that one.
So half of the books that we read.
Well, let's see. I named 4 out of no math, a quarter.
You listed 5.
Tenders of Flesh, Revenge, Song for the Unraveling of the World, A Short Stay in Hell.
The Shining and Punk Rock Ghost Stories.
No. Those were two favorite episodes to record and talk about, but not 2 of my favorite books.
Okay, I see. Well,
so I'm only cheating a little bit.
Yeah. So you're still only listing half the books we've read.
Well, I hope
in different capacities.
If you have 13 kids, I hope you at least enjoy half of them. What about you?
I didn't give it qualifiers like you did, but I will, since I can, I guess. I think my favorite to record and my least favorite was probably Revenge, because it was the first one. So it was exciting, but also I had to remember how to use my editing program and we had to figure out all the mics and stuff. So that was, and I way over edited it. I was like meticulous about all the hums and haws, and it took way too long. So, but it was fun. I also really enjoyed with that one, taking all my notes, because you had told me before we read it that like the short stories all connected. So I really enjoyed like finding all those connections. That was a good start, I think. As far as other favorite episodes to record, I don't know. It's kind of a blur. They were all fun. Nothing particularly stands out. I did enjoy Punk Rock Ghost Story because I got to needle you a lot. Same with Such Lovely Skin, because you just kept putting your foot in your mouth, and that was really fun.
Yeah, check that one out if you want me to. If you want to hear me stumble over myself a couple of times.
As for my favorite books, I would say Tenders the Flesh. I'm still sitting with that. Like 2 months, month and a half later, I still think about it all the time, and just how awful of a book it is, in like a good awful way. But that was a really good one. That's one I will happily recommend to people, and then watch them squirm when they give it back. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was great. Thanks. I also really enjoyed The Only Good Indians. I love Stephen Graham Jones's writing, and I appreciate how, for me at least, it takes a beat to get into his style. I mean, not the story, but just like to get into his flow. And that's just such a unique thing that I don't see very often at all outside of his writing. So that's really fun. It was also just a good story. I love the scene with the motorcycle spraying blood as it scalps someone. I mean, come on, that's just gold. And then, of course, We Sold Their Souls gets an honorable mention because I love Grady Hendrix. I love metal. And that was the only Grady Hendrix book up to that point that I had not read. So, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd say there weren't any books I didn't like. Obviously, I liked some more than others, but I got something out of all of them, which is cool.
There was one that I didn't like that you wanted us to listen to, and then I said, no, I'm not talking about that book.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, but that didn't make it on the podcast. So there you go.
I think too, another thing is just like the process of recording the podcast and kind of like our style of note taking. Because originally I was taking a bunch of notes on the books. I was like, I should read each book twice. But I kind of like how we got into, we're not really so much reviewing the book or dissecting it. It's more just kind of like a conversation about themes in the book that struck us. And I don't know. I kind of like
whatever it brought up.
Yeah.
Because with the Punk Rock Ghost Story, we talked a lot about you and being a punk, growing up in a punk world, as opposed to necessarily like the detail, like getting deep into the story. Whereas I feel like the same kind of with Tender is the Flesh. We talked a lot about the meat industry and such, but then The Shining, we just talked about The Shining the whole time.
Yeah. It's nice being able to have a little flexibility there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely less nervous too. The first I don't know, half of the first season, I was definitely like, okay, I gotta talk and my words will be recorded. And it made me a little nervous, but not so much anymore. It's already gotten easier. I assume the same for you with editing.
Oh, God, yes. I've relaxed a lot. So you hear the hums and haws, and I apologize, sort of, but I have a life. I can't fix our speech for us through editing. I mean, I can, but I'm not going to. So
another fun thing that we noticed is that, well, not that we noticed, but like our hosting platform tells us like how many listeners we've had for each episode. And we're not going to go into the exact numbers, but we thought it'd be interesting to just talk about like our top 5 most streamed episodes, and especially the first one, which we were both kind of taken by surprise. So in order from most listened to least listened of the top 5, we have A Short Stay in Hell, then Tender is the Flesh, The Only Good Indians, We Sold Our Souls. Wait, no, I'm looking at your list. Wait.
Those are my favorite books. How convenient.
I had it right. Yeah, so from most listened to least listened to of the top 5, we have A Short Stay in Hell, and then Revenge, Such Lovely Skin, The Only Good Indians, and Tender is the Flesh, which is cool because Tender is the Flesh definitely brought us in some South American listeners, which was fun to see.
And it was also our last episode, which says a lot because like Revenge has had a lot longer time up in the world of podcasts to be listened to than Tender is the Flesh has.
Yeah. So A Short Stay in Hell kind of surprised us both just because I hadn't heard of this book or this author. This was early on when I was like, what are the best written horror books? And now I've relaxed a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can just like enjoy some books. It's interesting, especially because it was our 10th episode. So it was on the back end and has done really well. So check it out if you haven't, along with the others.
So our case study there is that we have no idea what you guys like. It feels very random, which is great. So we're making a very strong point to have a wide variety of genres, or not genres, it's horror, subgenres within horror and weird fiction for season 2. So everybody can get a little of everything, I guess.
Before we talk about some of our plans for season 2, let's talk about Chicago and G-Fest.
Yeah, our first holiday. Yeah, we went on holiday to Chicago to surprise our small human who is absolutely obsessed with Godzilla. And we took him to G-Fest, which is a Godzilla con that happens annually in Chicago area. And we had an amazing time. It was so fun.
Yeah, it was great. I didn't know this thing existed until I was like, I should see if there's a Godzilla convention because our son's like rabid for this stuff. I hadn't been to a convention in a long time, so it was just fun being around, people who are excited about the same thing you're excited about. And there were like costume contests, which was awesome. They had fan-made videos.
You joined a writers group?
Yeah, I was walking around. There was a sign for a writer's workshop. I was like, I should probably do that. I had no idea that they would. And apparently it was the first year they were doing it. And it was a ton of fun. I just like sat down with pen and paper and wrote some fan fiction. I ended up really liking it. And that was cool.
Yeah, we also painted little models, little busts. I did Mothra, Dan did Godzilla, and our son did Rodon.
Maybe we'll share a picture of them on our Instagram, Dust to Dawn podcast.
Yeah, I'll do that. There's also art contests and stuff, and they had, and video contests, and yeah, it was panels about everything from like the history of toys, how they make toys, how to make your own models, how to do film. Yeah, it was fun. It was not something I would have said I would do before our child decided that this is his path. I've always been one who's been wanting to go to a Star Trek convention since I was probably like 5 years old. But here we are. My first outside of like Comic-Con convention was Godzilla.
It was fun. Oh, I think one of the coolest things too were definitely like the models. Some of the models were just like out of this world.
Oh my God,
really
they were
cool.
amazing. Yeah.
And then there was a room where they were like making fan-made Godzilla shorts like in the room. Like they had, a big cardboard city and someone in a huge Godzilla suit stomping around filming it right there, and you could watch them doing it, and it was cool.
Yeah, it was fun. So after the convention, we stayed in Chicago and decided to spend a few days down in the Loop, which is the central downtown hub where all the skyscrapers are in Chicago. If you don't know the area, it's called the Loop because the public transit makes a loop around this downtown area. And so we stayed there. We didn't veer too far out of the Loop area. It was very hot and humid. We wanted to go to museums and stuff, so we didn't explore too far, which is sad because since we got home, I've been told about a couple of really cool bookshops that we could have gone to.
We clocked like 12 to 15K steps a day, so I think we did all right.
Yes, and we still managed to go to 4 bookstores, so we were fine.
Yeah, a couple of our favorites. There was a really cool small bookstore called Exile in Bookville.
Yeah, in an old Frank Lloyd Wright designed building. It reminded me of like old apartments in San Francisco where you have to like go inside and go up the marble staircase. It was cool.
Yeah, they had
great view of the park, Millennium Park, from the bookshop.
Yeah, we got some cool books in there, and it was funny too because we were talking to the owner for a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you like it here," and she told us about how another customer had come in earlier and just looked around and was like, "You got some weird books," and then left, which was the exact opposite of our experience. Was
like, "You've got weird books. This is great.
This place is weird. I want to spend hours here."
Lots of cool translated works. Like they had a bunch of translated stuff that I hadn't seen before. But now it's going to be like Bader Meinhof, right? Where I'm going to just see it everywhere. But it's always fun when you go into a shop and you don't just see the same 10 most popular books on the shelf, I really liked that shop, and it was pretty much across the street from the Art Institute. So we were able to go twice because we went on one day, and then when we went to the Art Institute, we went again. So we gave them lots of our money.
Yeah. And happy to support a small bookstore like that too. We also went to a cool bookstore called Afterwards, which was in a basement, and we got some local author.
It wasn't in a basement. It was street level. Oh. But the weird thing about Chicago is I actually got a book about building Chicago because I didn't realize this was a thing, but Chicago is like street level, but then they have like a second level that's like the normal street level. So there's like an underground tunnel system sort of street level, and then they built a new street level above it. So Afterwards Books was technically street level, but you had to go down to get to it. I don't know how to explain it any clearer than that. And what was cool also about this bookshop is then you go in it on the ground level, and then it had a basement. So then I think, actually were underground. I don't know at this point, but yeah, that was a great little shop. We found what I really liked about this one was they had little stickers for local authors. Thank you. Which was helpful. I ended up getting a horror book because it was written by someone from there. And I think they had the section on Hemingway, right? I think he was born there.
Yeah, like a whole end cap. They're like, oh yeah, he's ours.
Yeah. I mean, you can have him.
I mean, Hemingway obviously like moved around a lot in his life too. So I don't know how long he's in Chicago. I didn't look it up. It'd be funny if he was like, I don't know, there for a year, and they're like, local author, slap it on there. I'm not sure. Amber's looking it up right now.
He was born in Illinois. I knew it.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess they're not exaggerating.
He was born in Oak Park, which is just a bit west of Chicago.
Oh, cool. I like me some Hemingway. There's some, parts that haven't aged as well, but I still like him.
Yeah. They still can have him, though. I mean, maybe Paris might want him.
Yeah.
Or Spain. Or, like, the Caribbean. I don't know.
We also went to a cool bookshop called Sandmeyer's. And what was cool about being there is as we were checking our books out, the cashier was like...
The bookseller. Such a cooler name.
Oh, I do like that name better. The bookseller was like, do you know where you are? It's like, Chicago? She's like...
No, where am I? Is this an ice cream shop?
I didn't say that, but I thought it in my head. And she's like, this is like the old historical hub of printing and publishing in Chicago, known as Printers Row. It's not anymore. She's like, yeah, there's like a plaque down the street that talks about like how important of a hub this was in the Midwest and America in the earlier times.
Yeah, I think she said in the world or the US. And then I looked it up when I got home and it was actually of the Midwest. So she exaggerated a little bit, but they did a lot of academic printing and had, I think, a fair amount of publishing houses for a while. But I think it's still always really been New York. But I thought that was really interesting. And the buildings reflected that too.
Yeah, apparently...
Which I actually, sorry to interrupt you, I actually did post that on Instagram. I think the first picture I did of Chicago, or the first post I did of Chicago has a picture of like one of the old printing signs on the side of a building. So...
And what's interesting is that the area became the center for printing after the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, which I got a book on. I'm interested to read that one. I just did a quick look up, and apparently that fire raged for 36 hours before being extinguished, and it devastated like the heart of the business district in an area of 4 miles long by a mile wide. Over 17,000 buildings were burned down. So that's pretty crazy. And then out of the ashes came book publishing. So I'm not going to say it was worth it because that's a big fire. But, you can get some good things coming out of new growth. And the last thing I'll say on that is this year in September, they're celebrating their 40th annual Printers Row Lit Fest. So they do still acknowledge and celebrate that history in that area.
Okay, as a West Coaster, I was curious. So the San Francisco fire was in 1851, but it was smaller and it didn't last as long. But I think it was probably just as devastating. But I was curious because, fires in the mid-19th century were pretty bad. But anyway, sorry, that was totally random, but it popped in my head and I'm like,
you're a California girl. You
had to do history.
You had to do some comparison there. That was fun. Chicago was great. And let's talk a little bit about our season 2 prep. We don't have a whole lot to announce except that we're doing it.
Yeah, and we have a couple of surprises sprinkled in throughout the season, which I guess I shouldn't tell you about because that defeats the point. But we have a good variety. We've got, I don't know, should I go through some of the subgenres?
Yeah, you got a whole Excel sheet. There's right now 24 books in all. Yeah, sure, if you wanted. Whatever you want to say.
Okay. We are doing some themed ones for the holidays. We are going to read some slashers, some short stories, some gothic literature, weird fiction, cosmic horror, psychological horror, historical horror, dystopian horror, body horror. Like I said, we're trying to cover all the bases. Medieval horror. So
I'm looking forward to that. I can't think of any medieval horror that I've read.
Some local horror. Yeah, I have. It's fun. It's of course, usually religious because medieval usually means Europe, and that's like literally all they could talk about and do things with.
I mean, there's probably an argument that horror came out of religion. Who knows?
I mean, yeah. Well, hell, at least that whole concept, and witches and stuff. But yeah, it was funny going to the Art Institute, and I was all excited for the medieval section. I went in, I was like, oh, right. I always forget. It's always just shit they pulled out of a church, just like stuck it on a wall. Like, hey, look at this picture of Jesus. Hey, look at this picture of Mary. But anyway, I'm looking forward to reading that one. I haven't read that one yet, but yeah, we have some stuff that we're going to have to hustle for because publishing dates are close to when we're reading them. We're going to try to be a little bit more of a mix in old and new in that sense. And yeah, I think I'll leave the rest of the surprises as surprises.
Yeah, the whole thing isn't set in stone yet, but we're working on it. And we will definitely share like the first 3 episodes, probably closer to September. So
yeah, so this time I've already gone through and made a lot of the on the chopping block stuff. And I'm gonna share the next 3 books with you guys instead of just 2. So if you have something on your TBR and you're like, oh, I really want to read this, maybe that'll encourage you to read it. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of reading.
Which is good, because I need to do more reading, because then that makes me want to do more writing, and those are good things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we've been reading, and then finish it off. Let these guys get back to their summer.
Okay, that sounds
good.
Or
winter, if you're on the other side of the earth.
That's a good point. Go ahead. Why don't you start?
I actually got things to say. I felt like the last few episodes of season 1, I was like, I'm just reading the podcast books because it was true. Now that I've had a little time, I have been reading more. Now, I haven't read all of these books that I'm going to mention because some of them are short stories, etc. And I like to just like, oh, I'll read a short story out of this book and then I'll read one out of that book, etc. But for a long time, I've had this book called The Penguin Book of Demons, which is really cool because it talks about demons, obviously, from like different points of history. So like early Middle Age, late Middle Age, modern, all that kind of stuff. And from like not until 2 days ago did I look through the back and it was like, there's more. There's the Penguin Book of the Undead. There's which is another one I picked up from the library. I got the Penguin Book of Witches.
Support your local libraries, kids.
Yeah, Penguin Book of Witches is waiting for me at the library. They have the Penguin Book of Hell, like all this stuff. And because we've been in a horror writing group, I'm interested in like actually learning more about this stuff because I don't really know much other than what you see in like movies, I guess. And usually that's more visual and like pretty surface level of the history of these things. So I want to like go to the original sources because it'll be like Pliny the Younger talked about witches in a manuscript from whatever year he was alive. Or like there's a section from the Odyssey when Odysseus goes to Hades to talk to the different shades and he like encounters his mother and he encounters like a fallen soldier. So it's just like going back to the source with a lot of the stuff, and hopefully it'll make my writing of scary shit better.
That's always fun. So it's basically like reference books.
Yeah, I've another book I read.
Would you say it's like a historical timeline? Is it like broken down like that?
So like Penguin Book of Demons, it has Legends of the Fall, Rebel Angels in Ancient Judaism. Then they have demons in ancient Christian thought, and they have like a section from the New Testament, but they'll have an introduction and they'll be like, the New Testament didn't really talk about demons much. And then you'll read a section from it, and it'll tell you like the thought at that time. And then there's demons in the King Solomon tradition, go forward, witch demons of Byzantium, demons in the High Middle Ages. So it's more like 3 or 4 different sources within each of those sections that talk about, go to early modern Europe, demons of the East, just kind of like global folklore and story and religious themes around demons. And the Book of the Undead is supernatural encounters, and so it'll be like the way people saw supernatural events and things in different parts of the world at different points of history. And it's cool because I had also read like some writer advice from a horror author that was like, just read a bunch of folklore, like get all that stuff as a foundation, because then not even necessarily to like use an exact thing that you read, it'll give you such like a rich foundation that you can then twist to your own needs. This is more of a passage than a quote, but this is super cool. So to give you an idea of like how these books work, this is from the Penguin Book of the Undead. This chapter is A Mistress of the Graves. It appeared in a epic poem by some Roman dude. How often do you think of the Roman Empire? And
womp, womp, womp.
But it's cool because in the poem, Sextus, the son of Pompey, during the civil war between Julius Caesar and Pompey. And at some point, Sextus, the son of Pompey, is like, who's going to win this civil war? So what does he do? He goes to a witch and is like, hey, can you raise someone from the dead so that that dead person can tell us, like, who's going to win? And she spoke, and with her craft redoubled the shadows of night. Her dismal head shrouded in squalid mist, she wanders among slain bodies cast off and denied their burial. Straightway fled wolves, hungry birds of prey pulled out their talons and fled, while the Thessalian selects her prophet. Probing entrails, chilly with death, she finds the fibers of strong, unwounded lungs and seeks the voice in a body discharged from life. Many fates of slain men already hanging there. Which one would she want to call back up to life? If she had tried to raise up all the ranks and return them to war, the laws of Erebus would have obeyed, and that powerful monster would have hauled out of Stygian Avernus a people ready to fight. At last she picks a body with its throat cut, takes and drags it by a hook stuck in its fatal noose, a wretched corpse over rocks and crags, then lays it high up under a mountain's cave, which gloomy Erectro damned with her sacrifice. How cool is that? You're not going to get that shit from watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer or some shit.
Oh, careful. You might offend some people.
Oh, no. I want the real stuff.
Have you read Grady Hendrix yet?
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, moving on. Also, non-horror call out real quick. I finally picked up some short stories, a collection called Last Evenings on Earth by Roberto Bolaño, who's a Chilean author who I've had a couple friends highly suggest. Our good friend Andrea gave us the book The Savage Detectives, which is on our bookshelf, and I will read it. And then the guy I play music with once a week recommended the book 2666, but it's over 1,000 pages long, and I hadn't read Bolaño yet, so I was like, well, I'll start with some short stories. But he seems really interesting. I'm really enjoying the stories. Last Evenings on Earth is like all about different writers, some of them having their last evenings on Earth. So he's very much like a writer who writes about writers. And while writing, while we were at Exile in Bookville in Chicago, one of his books, it just sounds crazy. It's called Nazi Literature in the Americas, which is a book of short biographies of imaginary Pan-American authors, including literary Nazis, far-right sympathizers, and zealots, mostly from South America and some from North America, portrayed as a gallery of self-deluded mediocrities, snobs, opportunists, narcissists, and criminals. And he made them encyclopedic entries as if it was really about these people who were writers and terrible. So that sounds fascinating.
Is part of it based on the idea that a lot of Nazis fled to South America?
Oh yeah, he did a ton of research and tried to make them seem realistic and based on a lot of historical fact. And then I got two more books to talk about here. I picked up Occultation and Other Stories by Laird Barron, which is a new author to me, but his name comes up a lot and when I've looked up who are the good weird fiction authors. And just the other night I finished this while in bed right before I went to sleep, and I really wanted to read you the last tiny little section because it would have been really creepy and made it hard to go to sleep. So good thing you said no. I'm too tired.
I love it.
Something hit the floor on the opposite side of the bed with a fleshy thud, like a coconut dropping from a tree into wet sand. Her breath caught and her eyes bulged as she listened to the object slowly roll across the floorboards in a bumpy, lopsided fashion. This was a purposeful, animated movement that bristled every hair on her body. She reached over her shoulder and gripped his arm. Psst, honey. It was like shaking a corpse. Quietly, muffled by the mattress, someone under the bed began to laugh.
Ooh, creepy.
Yeah, super creepy. I saw an article a couple months ago. I forgot where the woman was, but in real life, someone was going to bed and they got a weird feeling and they looked under their bed and somebody was there who had broken into the house.
I keep seeing these stories on Instagram about how cameras have caught people who it's only been maybe 2 or 3, but they're always in Japan, and it's like a homeless person who's been hiding in like the closet or whatever. And when the person leaves, they come out of the closet and like eat their food and shit and just like live in their house. I'm like, that is so fucking creepy.
That is really creepy. I had a friend at work or something, not at his apartment, but when he got home, the like door in his bathroom had been opened, and there was blood
I remember this.
all in the kitchen because they had like hurt themselves coming in. So that's creepy. Luckily they were gone when he got back, but I mean, that would have freaked me out. He doesn't live there anymore, and I'm sure he doesn't mind that.
Can't imagine why.
And then last but not least, this one's a heavy hitter. It's called Suicide by Édouard Levé, if I'm saying that right.
I picked that one up in Chicago, right?
You did. You were like, hey, you should read this. I don't know.
Well, I should too, but yeah.
This looks interesting. So I'll just say there was a suicide in my family, and that's all I'm going to say about it personally. But it's obviously something that has affected me very strongly. This was 20 years ago, but still, it's going to be in my head till the day I die. So like, this is not a light read, obviously trigger warnings and all that. But what's really fascinating is that it's all in the second person. So the author is basically describing the person that commits suicide that he talks to, and like all the things he thinks about them and the memories that he has. And a really crazy quote, I think that affected me the most in it, goes, the way in which you quit it rewrote the story of your life in a negative form. Those who knew you reread each of your acts in the light of your last. Henceforth, the shadow of this tall black tree hides the forest that was your life. When you are spoken of, it begins with recounting your death before going back to explain it. Isn't it peculiar how this final gesture inverts your biography? Oof.
So true, though. It's so 100% true.
Yeah.
Because people latch on to that, and then that's all the person becomes.
Yeah, they just become a tragedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I'm getting a little shook up even just reading that. So I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It's great because it's not, not glorifying suicide or anything, but it's doesn't feel like a moral lecture on suicide. It just feels like somebody's very honest thoughts, who happens to be a great writer, discussing how it affected them. So
it's also really short. So even though it's really intense, you're not stuck in it for 400 pages.
Yeah. That, and I think reading second person, form would also be really hard over a long period of time.
Yeah. But I bet that makes it a lot more personal when it's pointed at you.
So what have you been reading?
So I've read a couple of books, and mostly horror, a couple that are not horror. I finally bit the bullet and DNF'd Moby Dick.
So you're not going to catch that big white whale.
I am not. I'll just stick with my quote in Star Trek. It just wasn't for me, and it just felt like a waste of time. I did finish a couple of books, though. I've read William by Mason Coile, which was fun. It was like a tech horror. I'm struggling because I don't want to ruin anything, but it's like technology is more advanced, and these people were making an AI persona, and it feels very fitting for today with all the AI stuff. It has a good twist in it, so I enjoyed that one. I also read The Night Guest, and I'm gonna butcher this name because it's Icelandic. Hildur Knútsdóttir. Knútsdóttir. Yeah.
I can't help you on that one.
Sorry, I don't speak Icelandic. But that was a fun one. It was this woman who goes to sleep, and she wakes up so tired, and she can't figure out what's going on. She thinks maybe she's depressed or something, and starts trying to exercise to see if that helps, and gets an Apple Watch or whatever, and it tracks her steps, and she notices at night she's got 10 to 20,000 steps, and she can't figure out why.
Clever.
Yeah. So she goes through this whole thing of trying to figure out what the heck's going on at night. And it was fun because I was listening to that one while I was hiking every morning, hiking and listening to this book about lots of exercise. And I was like, oh, well, that works. So that was fun. I enjoyed it. And it was cool to read something Icelandic. I also finished Plastic Monsters by Daniel J. Volpe, which was good. I enjoyed the plot. I felt that the characters were a little flat. They could have used more depth, but it's about a woman who's obsessed with her looks and she's starting to feel old. And another woman at her job gets a boob job and she's super jealous and tries to find a plastic surgeon who will help improve her. And it's horror, so you can imagine it doesn't go well. But it's a fun read. It was a quick read. But yeah, the characters, I wasn't really, you weren't supposed to love them, but they didn't register with me that well. I finally finished Listen to Your Sister by Neena Viel or Vale. That came out in February of this year. And I started it. I got almost halfway through and then I just got way too busy and I had to put it aside because I was falling behind on podcast stuff along with everything else in my life. So I finally picked that up and finished it and I enjoyed that a lot. That was it was a bit of a slow burn too because there was a lot of like build up in the beginning and then they finally go to like a cabin and then all the stuff kind of cascades on them. And I listened to one more book, How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DiLouie. And it was fine. It was all right. I don't know if it was the narrator or the story, but I just kept finding myself getting distracted while listening to it. It was a good plot. You know, it's like a possessed camera that kills people if you're caught in its, camera thing. It kind of felt like a R.L. Stein, Say Cheese or Die. Yeah. Were you about to say that? Yeah. It kind of felt like that, but with a camera and obviously adults and more adult horror. But it was good, but it didn't stick.
I forgot if I said this on an earlier episode, but I remember being in like 4th or 5th grade and our English teacher was talking about how sequels in books are never as good as the original. And I remember feeling really clever because I was like, actually, I read Say Cheese and Die too, and I thought it was better than the first one. Not thinking she's probably not considering that kind of story.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking to kids who are reading middle grade, I mean, come on, what do you expect? You got to come down to their level. I also read a nonfiction, non-horror book that caught my eye a while ago. It's a memoir called Fearless and Free by Josephine Baker. And this was published in French, I think in like the 50s or the 40s. I don't know. It was a long, long time ago, but it finally got translated into English. And that was a fun read. It was also really depressing because she had a pretty darn good life in France and traveling the world as a artist. I don't know if you don't know who she is, she was a singer and dancer and she did burlesque and she was just very, very, very famous in France, but she was born in America and she was Black. And so towards the end of her memoir, she comes back to the United States during Jim Crow. She married a Jewish man and came back to the States, and they were trying to stay in a hotel in New York, and they're like, oh, sorry, we're all booked. Oh, sorry, this and that. And she's like, this is bullshit. And ended up going down to the Jim Crow South and experiencing that and was like, this country is so fucking backwards. And you might say it resonates today still, which is just so sad because she was such a optimistic, positive person. And she always found it, like, at least in the memoir, she always found like the positives in tough situations. She was a spy during World War II. Like, this woman is awesome. You should check her out if you don't know about her. But just her coming back to America and being like, what is wrong? This place is so horrible, was really depressing. But it's a great, great book. So I guess in a sense that is horror.
Between that and suicide, we're really like knocking out the light summer reads.
Yeah, you know. Nothing but fluff, baby. Poolside books. Which actually brings me, yeah, right. Which actually brings me to, I had mentioned this before, but I have dipped into The Coming of the Third Reich by Richard J. Evans, which is also really fucking light read, you know, this huge ass history book. And then I am currently reading The Creeper by A.M. Shine, who is a Irish author. And this is about two people who go into a very isolated, remote village, and creepy things happen. So
I just thought of a great photo for Instagram. We need to like get you like with your fingers spread out and try to see if we can get like 3 or 4 books held out up like and open in each hand. Because that's what I imagine when you talk about your really long I've been reading list.
Well, it's funny because like when we talked about doing this, I was like, I haven't really read that much. And then I'm like, oh my God, like 10 minutes later of me rambling on about all the books. I don't know. I just am always I just always have a book near me. And I actually have read 2 other books. Well, I'm in the process of reading another book, and I have read another book. But they're for next season, and I'm still on the fence if I want to talk about what we're reading next yet.
Quite, yeah. Let's keep you guys in suspense.
So much suspense.
And speaking of suspense, I was going to segue to the end. Is that suspenseful?
So suspenseful, especially when you say it
climax?
that way.
Oh, no.
Here we go. I see a foot. Okay. It's heading towards your mouth.
Coda. That's like a musical and a literary word. Okay, we're coda-ing, which means, yeah, I hope you enjoyed our little summer update. Talking about G-Fest, Chicago, bookstores, what we've been reading, all the stuff we've been talking about. It's nice to say hi before we start the second season in earnest. Again, keep track of our Instagram, Dusk to Dawn Podcast. You'll see on the chopping block what's coming up once we're ready to announce that, probably midway or toward the end of August. And I'm guessing this might be our only update, but who knows? Maybe we'll surprise you with a little mini one before. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see. No promises. We're busy people. We're busy people. I'm sure you are too, but...
And so thanks for listening.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, if you've made it this far, then we didn't scare you off. Thanks for listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction.
Please rate our podcast, and if you like, follow us on Instagram at Dusk to Dawn Podcast, which is also our Gmail address. Tell us what you liked or didn't like about the show, and let us know if you have any book suggestions. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.